Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Crush the Quote webinar series, a series of webinars and conversations where we bring experts, thought leaders to the table to talk about ideas, to talk about their experience, to talk about the things that have had an impact on their lives, impact on their teams or their businesses, and to share with you how some of those lessons learned can make a difference in your day-to-day life. In our conversation today, we have Michael Vincent. Michael Vincent is the owner at the Vincent Academy and Michael Vincent Magic. Michael has been a magician for many years. And I've known Michael now, goodness, Michael, how long has it been? Whoa, we're going back to
since the 90s.
Yes, since the 90s. Can you believe it? So Michael is one of those few magicians with exceptional sleight of hand and captivating theoretical skills, which has earned him a spot amongst the world's elite magicians for a number of decades. I've been around a lot of magicians. I've seen a lot of different levels of quality, of skill and capability, and I can truly say Michael stands out amongst all the magicians I've ever seen when it comes to his technical capabilities. His magic has graced the prestigious venues worldwide, entertained top corporations as well as international celebrities. And he himself is inspired by legendary mentors. I recall Alex Elmsley. Do we remember Alex Elmsley, Michael? And the Elmsley Count. I had the privilege myself of meeting Alex Elmsley many years ago, and you've known many of them, right?
Yep, good memories.
Yes, good memories. So today he's going to share with us his story about rediscovering magic, a journey of care, loss, and renewed purpose. Michael, thank you so much for being with us today. We are truly honored that you could take the time to join us and that you've come to share openly and honestly your story. So, Michael, you've been a magician for many years, and
Correct.
You were doing really well. So let's start where the story changes. And you found yourself in a place where you had to make a difficult decision about your magic career.
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be with you all. Yes, magic's my great passion. It was my hobby for a very long time before I turned professional. So from 1991 up to 2019, I was aggressive in terms of making my career work and work the way that I wanted it to. So picture the scene. It's the summer of 2019. I had just done a trip to a town in Italy called Tagliacozzo, and I spent a few days in Rome afterwards, sightseeing, doing some photography. And when I came home, to my great shock, I saw the deterioration of my mother. My mother had been suffering with bouts of dementia, memory loss, and really drastic cognitive function. And it just hit me like a thunderbolt. And I realized that my career was over. Instantly, in a heartbeat. I didn't even entertain thoughts of how am I going to navigate. I just knew that I could not travel and leave my mother anymore. Some context, I'm an only child, and there was nobody else to do the work. It was all on me. So making the decision to stop traveling and to willingly take on the role of becoming a carer was a heartbeat moment where I thought, okay, I'm home. I'm not traveling again. I can't. I just couldn't, because I didn't want to be on the road and something happens to my mother. No way. So in that moment, that was the end of my career, 2019. And it was a few months before the lockdown.
How many years, Michael? How many years of a career are we talking about before that moment happened?
Well, I turned professional in 1991. So from 1991 to 2019, I'm in the realm of doing corporate gigs, banquets, cabaret, close-up, cocktail receptions, traveling all over the world, from as far east as China, as far south as Cape Town, as far north as Iceland, and as far west as the northwest region of Canada, and everywhere else in between. So I've done my road work.
So, Michael, for most people in the working world, their careers form a huge part of their identities.
Yes.
So when you made that decision to give up your career in magic, how did that affect your identity?
Wow. I'm going to be totally straight with you. It stripped me bare. I had no brain pattern for becoming a carer and looking after an 80-year-old woman, my mother. So my identity died in that moment. And don't forget, I'm deaf. So I've got a double whammy of being deaf, giving up my career as an artist, and then having to embrace a new role in my life. Wow, it was profoundly, it was confronting. And at the same time, it humbled me in a way that I could not even begin to appreciate. It's only after my mother's death, looking back on it, I could reflect on how much I became a baby. Now, when I say a baby in my psychology, because here I am, a grown man, looking after an 8-year-old woman who was slowly reverting back to that childlike quality of being dependent on someone. My mother was dependent on me. And you know what was really beautiful? It wasn't beautiful at the time, but I can declare it. There was a part of her that trusted me to take care of her. She ate the food I cooked. She allowed me to attend to all her needs, everything. And some days were quite shocking. And my mother raised me as a spiritual Catholic. So I just said to myself, Michael, is looking after your mother worse than being nailed to a cross? I thought, don't be a muppet. No, it isn't. Okay. Then there's going to be something for me at the end of this. So I endured it.
Okay, so I mean, and that endurance we could probably talk about, if we had a lot more time. But what I want to ask you is, so you were having this conversation internally with yourself.
Yes.
It must have taken a toll on your mental well-being. So how long, first of all, did you end up having to care for your mother, and how did it affect your mental well-being during that time, and how did you tackle that?
I'm just pausing because you've asked me a very powerful question, because at the heartbeat of this conversation is the impact on mental health. I'm grateful to a friend of mine, Paul. He said, Mike, no matter what you deal with on a daily basis, you've got to look after yourself. Let me tell you, I didn't want to look after myself, but I knew I had to because my mother was counting on me. It was confronting. I lost the will to speak, to engage in conversation with anybody. My mental health was under severe attack because I couldn't even practice. I literally put all my props away. I had no drive or desire to take my cards out, read a book on magic, because my thought process was in another realm where I had to keep an eye on things, do what needed to be done. And the best way I can describe it, imagine your brain just stopping. Stop. And the only thought process you have, get through the day. Do what needs to be done in the way it needs to be done so that I can go to sleep at night knowing I did my duty. Everything else didn't matter. Nothing else mattered. And then my friend Paul Reagan, he said, Mike, you need a respite. I said, what do you mean? He says, just go for a walk and breathe. But you've got to do something for yourself. I said, buddy, I don't feel like it. He said, it doesn't matter about how you feel. Just do it. It's for your peace of mind. Okay, I'll take that on. And then the lockdown came. So the double whammy of looking after my mum, the lockdown, being isolated, You know, the hardest thing I had to deal with, believe it or not, was the fact I had a lot of friends. The people that I thought were my friends, none of them showed up. None of them checked in on me. That hurt me more than seeing my mother slowly withering away. But one person covered my back with regular communication. That was my friend Paul. He checked in on me every other day or so. I can't tell you what that meant. Okay. And, but most of the time, while mum was sleeping, Catherine, I'd just be sat on the couch, twiddling my thumbs, not knowing what to do, not knowing who I am in all of this. I knew one thing with absolute certainty, that no matter what happens, no matter how this ends, I am the man my mother raised. Even if she could no longer speak to me, she trusted me. And if she leaves this world before me, she will leave this world with me holding her hand. I will see my mother take her last breath. That's exactly how it played out. My mental health, I would say once my mind accepted the situation, this is a key phrase, accepted. It's one thing to say I'm a carer now, but it's another thing entirely to embrace it. To embrace a role that you're not prepared for. How do you get training from that? Well, I had girls coming in every day to support me. So I watched them and I modeled their behavior, their calmness, their stoicism. It was really matter of fact, the way they went about certain things. I thought, okay, I'm just going to have to put my emotions in check. And I had to divorce myself from being a son and being someone that's highly functional and capable to cook, clean, attend to someone's needs, administer those needs in a calm, stoic fashion. Guess what? I did. But most days I went to bed feeling like a complete failure. And I think the failure was probably more rooted in the fact that I struggled to handle my feelings about what was happening, because I just couldn't believe it was happening to this woman that was my mother. Do you know something? There must be another word that's more powerful than the word humbling. Because to be truly humbled, there's a depth of feeling and emotion that's stronger than just being on your knees, not knowing what to do or how to function. I'm not even sure I'm making sense to try and communicate it. But being an only child and looking after someone that's always been kind, generous, firm with me growing up, covering my back and creating the space for me to explore myself as a magician, as a world traveler. Mum always said to me, get on with it, enjoy your life, come home safely. That was her communication to me. Let me see the world through your eyes. And she did. Beautiful. It's a wonderful gift she gave me. I'm comfortable talking about this because it helps me to process it deeper. Because right now I spend a whole week can go by, I don't talk to anyone, but I'm talking to myself while I go about my day, thinking, processing. I tell you something, Catherine, some moments of the day, I freeze mentally. I can't believe she's not here anymore. And then I get on with my day and then I freeze again. Then I continue. That's what it's like right now, moving forward while I'm preparing my show and practicing and doing everything else. I just have a mental break where I stop. I thought, bloody hell, life is funny. It really is.
And how long were you taking care of your mum before she passed away?
From 2019 to December the 6th, 2022. She took her last breath at 11:55 p.m. December the 6th at 11:55 p.m. So that was the
How
time
many years?
frame.
That was about 2 to 3 years then that you were taking care of.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah.
So, perhaps we do another conversation someday, Michael, where we explore all the coping mechanisms that you use during that time.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's a lot more than what we have time for today. But what I want to ask you next is, how did you find your way back? Because at the end of this time, once your mum had passed, what happened then? What did you do then? How did you find your way back? Did you find your way back? And if so, what are you doing now? And is there anything different about it than what you were doing before?
Well, that's very good. I'll give you this as quickly as I can. 2 things brought me back. The first of which was my camera. I'm a passionate photographer. So my respite was going out and taking photographs during the lockdown. The carers would come in, they would sit with mum for 30 minutes. I'd have 30 minutes to walk to Little Venice, take some photographs, or go to my local park and see Frisky the squirrel. So I'd photograph the squirrel. Okay, then come home. But the biggest breakthrough for me, while mum was sleeping, unconsciously my hand reached out and I picked up a deck of cards and I started shuffling. Then I put the cards back. Right there was the rebirth of Michael Vincent Magic. I didn't do anything other than just a shuffle, and then I got on with my duties. And then the next day or the day after that, I started shuffle. And then I engaged myself in a quick conversation. And I said to myself, I asked myself this question: what kind of artist and magician will I become when this is all over? It was quite a pragmatic question. When I say all over, I meant my mum was buried and finally at rest. I thought, my goodness, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I was not going back into the corporate world.
Okay. So before you continue, was there any moment when you even doubted that you could go back into being a magician?
Yes, there was. It happened quite early into the transition of me becoming a carer. And my mentor, Darwin Ortiz, said to me, Mike, don't worry. At the very least, consider this. If your career is behind you, at the very least, you will know in your heart that you did a great job. You made all your dreams come true. You and I got to enjoy a very long friendship. You're in the UK, I'm in Washington, DC. There's very little I can do for you. Let's just keep in touch by email. And this was during the lockdown. Okay, so that was a great help from Don, because that just the way he said it made me realize how much he cared about me as a person. Right. So I doubted that I would ever perform again. It hit me like a thunderbolt. I thought, oh, well, at least I did it. I met a princess. I met the man of Virgin, Branson. I entertained Muhammad Ali and Michael Jackson. I met my heroes. I'm happy. Okay. All right. That's fine. If I practice magic, it'll because it's for my pleasure. I can live with that. What I couldn't live with was just farming my mother off so that I could continue with my life. No. So when I asked myself the question, what kind of artist will I be afterwards? I knew that I wasn't going to be a corporate wannabe. None of that. I thought, okay, so what kind of artist do you want to be? Let's play a game. I said, I want to be the kind of magician and artist that people would pay money to come and see. That's all I said to myself. Okay. And then I would engage in that conversation again. All right, if people are going to pay money to come see you, what does that mean? It means I need to put on my own show. Okay, what kind of show? Well, at least a 1-hour show. And I just said to myself, Michael Vincent Showtime. Now that would be really something. And I had these thoughts in the last few months of my mother's life.
So tell us a little bit, when you were having these thoughts and you were finding your way back to being an artist, a magician, what's the guidance you would give people if, others who have lost their, their identity, who are trying to find their way back to something? Is there some sort of process that you can share with others? So for example, maybe you started small and built from there versus launching into a massive project. Is there any kind of guidance that you would give people?
Absolutely. Very good. Okay. There's one thing we need to accept as human beings. Who we are is much bigger than who we've created ourselves to be. I choose my words carefully. Who we are is far more greater and magnificent than who we've created ourselves to be. The first thing we need to do is get complete with this creation right here. So who is this creation? Well, it's a person that was created to survive the world and people. Survive, pretend, navigate, inveigle, slip in, become part of a clique, nonsense, garbage. I'm much bigger than that, right? Ego-driven superstar, nonsense, nonsense. Okay, so my guidance is, this is something I learned from Tony Robbins. He wrote a book called Awaken the Giant. In this book, he actually states very clearly, expand your identity. What does he mean by that? You may be a corporate, you may be a thought leader, you may run a big company, you may be a husband, your wife, a caregiver. Wow, to become a carer, let me say something, that's one of the greatest achievements of my life. Without question, whatever I achieve next will never come close to that. So the expansion of one's identity is to do so without attachment to who you think you are, because it means stripping yourself bare and starting again from nothing, and letting go of looking good in the eyes of others. You pretend to be a certain way. Why? Because you want to come across in a particular way to the people you think you know. Let that nonsense go. Satisfy the person in your mind and in your heart, not the mirror. The mirror gives you a reflection and you might blink slightly. No, you've got to sit quietly, close your eyes, connect with your spirit. Whatever your faith is, we're much bigger. And the fact that the human being is a creative source of energy. I'm going to share something with you which had a big impact on me. I'm not going to say where or how. All I'm going to say is I had a big experience with ayahuasca, and it revealed a few things to me about myself. And guess what happened? My consciousness, I saw the truth of my consciousness and who I am at the source beyond this crude matter of flesh and bone. Beautiful. And I experienced myself being very fluid as a carer, looking after mum, going for my walks. I experienced myself surrendering all attachment to how the rest of my life should look. I gave up all attachment to how people see me. I'm not saying I don't care. I'm saying I have no attachment to it. What does that mean? It means I am who I am. My favorite word in the English language is abracadabra. People laugh when I say that, but I need to give you the context. Abracadabra is Hebrew, and it literally means I create as I speak. What does that mean in real terms? Well, all of my creative efforts in the last few years began with I am. I am a great magician, no question. I've proved it. And I intend to be even greater. Right there was my destiny. In front of an audience, I can do it. I can make any audience fall in love with me, and they will come along for the ride and they will trust me. I'm creating a new show now, Michael Vincent Showtime. It's begun. I've just completed my first one-man show. The next event is on the June the 1st.
That's
ticket
wonderful.
sales.
Congratulations.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Selling tickets even now as I speak. So it's an incantation. That's why they call it spelling. It's a magical spell. I create as I speak. So anything that I speak with passion and intention, there's energy behind it. And it happens. Guess what's happening next? I'm off to the USA. I'm going to South Africa in a few weeks' time.
Oh, wow.
Come back.
Okay. What's happening in South Africa?
In September, I'm going to Johannesburg to do my show.
Oh, wow.
Come back, and then I'm going to Washington, DC. And then after June the 1st, I'm planning at least 2 more shows for the public here before the end of the year. Why am I doing this? It's who I am. Okay. It's not what I want to do. It's who I am. Look at those words, my choice of expression. You know, people say my mother would be very proud of me. Well, guess what? She already was proud of me. I know it because she told me. And that's not why I'm doing it. I am the legacy of my mother's life. So whatever I choose to do moving forward comes from that well of inspiration. I could not have spoken like this 3 years ago, but it's only in there's a word for it. I walk the dark night of the soul, Catherine.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The dark night of the soul is an existential crisis where you come face to face with all of your trauma.
Yeah.
Some people don't even survive it.
No, they don't.
I looked it straight in the eye and said, okay, what is there for me to learn? And it was all revealed to me. Give up your ego. Give up looking good. Humble yourself before others. You're a student of life and you're a creation of the world, no less than, but no greater than anyone else. Mm-hmm. And use the gifts you've been blessed with to bring joy to others. That's it.
That's just a wonderful, wonderful lesson and story. I love the story that you shared. I love the journey that you went on and your honesty about that. Just as we wrap up, Michael, is there a question that you would ask anyone that listens to your story that they could ask themselves that would maybe perhaps begin to provoke the same kind of challenge internally, mentally, and emotionally for themselves to look at themselves and go, what's that question?
I would say to anyone listening to, if you find yourself in a situation where you have to make a choice, ask yourself, if I choose this, what can I learn? What do I need to give up? What can I learn? Who can I become through this process? This is the key thing I'm going to say. Although I had no brain pattern to be a carer, I had to create myself to become one. And creation is a very ugly, distressing, confronting process. Any creation, often violent. But what does it do? It shapes, it molds, like the sculptor chipping away at marble. Dust. But guess what? That creation, it strips you bare, just like the layers of an onion. Oh, ego, resentment. Let's peel those layers back. Resentment, hatred, discrimination, subjugation, control, power, being right, controlling others. Once you peel all those layers back, you get to the final layer of the identity that you've created. What's left? Nothing. Nothing. And to stand in the middle of nothing, that's where real creation begins. Otherwise, it's like putting icing on top of a mud pie.
Right.
It's still a mud pie, even though it's got lovely icing on. Get all that. Stick your nose in the mud pie. Do what needs to be done, even though you don't want to or feel like it. You've got to become someone that can do it. And you won't recognize yourself. For me,
Okay.
I didn't recognize myself.
I completely imagine. Now, we've run out of time, Michael. I would love to have explored more, and I think we may want to do a follow-up conversation if that's okay with you.
Let's do another one.
Let's do another one. But I want to say thank you for giving us your time and for sharing your incredible story. It's been a huge privilege to learn about that, and to be able to, and for all of us to learn something from your journey. So thank you for your honesty and for sharing it so candidly with us.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I look forward to continuing this narrative with you when it works, okay?
Amazing. Thank you, Michael.